What's going on, everybody? My name's Alec, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the anchor tier list. Now, before I get into it, I do want to say this tier list is not which operator is better than the other one. It is which operator is better at anchoring than other operators. So if you see me place like Warden higher than I do Castle, or you see me place someone like Thunderbird higher than I place Alibi, it's not that Thunderbird is better than Alibi, it's that they're better at anchoring than Alibi is because of their utility. So with that out of the way, let's just get straight into the tier list. Starting off with the D tier. These are the people who are the least best suited to roam. Now, we have Cav, Vigil, and Oryx. Their utility is meant to be off-site and to roam and to waste as much time as possible and to get kills on the roam. They are not meant to anchor at all, and if you're anchoring as his operators, you're going to get little to no value. Now, there could be something to be said about Vigil because you can still use his scan on site, but even then, there are operators that are better, that do his job but better in terms of anchoring, and that is why they are all in the D tier. Now, I'm not saying that Vigil is a D tier operator like I prefaced in the beginning of the video. I'm just saying in terms of being an anchor, he's not a good anchor at all. Moving on to the C tier, we have Mozzie and Alibi. These two operators are actually pretty good operators, especially for solo queue ranked, but they're not good at anchoring. Now, there could be a case to be said about Alibi because she brings a deployable shield, she brings a bailiff for site setup, and she has clones that she can put on site, but her playing on site is not the best option. She is more suited to roam or to lurk near site and use her clones to help her do so. The same thing to be said about Mozzie. Now, you could argue that you have Mozzie pest near or in sight, and then you set up cameras, but that is not the best way to play Mozzie. The best way to play Mozzie is like playing a mini mute and playing him on the roam. So that being said, they are C tier anchorers. Now going into the B tier, these are more acceptable people that you can anchor with. We have Thorn, Goyo, Castle, Solus, and Clash. Now, Thorn, I will say, she does have a deployable shield, she does have traps that are meant to be played on site, but she's better suited near site, not necessarily inside of the objective. She is more meant to be an anchorer than she is to roam completely across the map, right? But if you start looking at people that I put in the A and S tier, she definitely belongs lower than them. That being said, next we're going into Goyo. Goyo, he can place all of his utility in the prep phase, so there's no actual need for him to anchor, especially because your teammates can use his utility and you don't need to use his utility. You can play him pretty much however you want. He is meant, like Thorn, to be played near site, not necessarily roaming, not necessarily anchoring, just wasting time with their utility to further ward off the attacker rush. Now, Castle, this may surprise some of you. Castle's actually a very good operator, and if you put his utility on site or on windows and doorways near site, he can actually be pretty useful. So seeing him this low may confuse some of you, but I'm going to say a take that a lot of you are not going to agree with. Castle is meant to roam, or meant to roam near site. He is not meant to be an anchorer. He's better suited to extending the objective horizontally or vertically than he is to actually put his castle barricades on site. Bank is a great example of this. If you're playing open area kitchen on Bank, you want to be extending the site horizontally with his castle barricades by taking tellers and the room adjacent to that, then you would be just putting castle barricades on the window or the doorways to site, because people take vertical extremely easy on that site, so extending horizontally to where they can't shoot you is very good as castle and wastes a lot of time. And now he's meant to be played as a roamer because of this, and that is why he's in the B tier. He is by no means, again, a bad operator. Next, we have Solus. Solus is a very good operator right now. She's good at getting drones, seeing utility, flanking with that utility, but she's not meant to be an anchor. She's a very good operator. She's good for roaming, good for flanking, good for getting utility and information for her team, but by no means should be wasting all of that potential by sitting on site. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. There could be an argument made for A tier if you're helping a bandit trick or trick, but if you're a good bandit tricker, you don't need a Solus, right? So that is why she's going in the B tier. And then finally, we have Clash. Now, Clash may surprise some of you because a lot of people think that she's an anchorer, and if you think she's an anchorer and you play her like an anchorer, sure, you could put her in the S tier, but it's gonna be like Castle, where again, she's not meant to be played on site, especially in the higher level. You're meant to play her near site. Good example, look at Cafe Kitchen, right? You would think play her in site, but the best way to play her for that site specifically is actually to play her in bakery, or to play her in restaurant, whiskey, VIP area, which is outside of the site, still near the site, so you're able to still back up to the site if needed, but you're playing outside the site to ward off an entire area that the attackers could push, and to be a stopping force in the attacker rush. So honestly, she's meant to be played a little bit near site and off site, not really meant to sit on site, right? Because if you're just going to sit on site with her, you might as well bring somebody else with a gun that does that but better with a deployable shield. So she's definitely not an anchor as much as people think she is, and that's why she's in the top of B tier. Next, we have the A tier. Now, there are a lot of people here that will surprise you, especially people like Ella and Frost, and they are definitely good at anchoring, and I'll tell you why. Starting off with Ella, she has a shotgun and a deployable shield that are very good for playing on site. If people walk in, you have a shotgun that is probably one of, if not the best shotguns in the entire game, that you can just mow them the fuck down with. Very, very good if you want to anchor with her. Her utility also supports it if you want to swing stunned players. And I overall think if you're roaming as Ela, you're not doing her complete justice if you have her shotgun, then you would be actually playing on site with her. I know she's a 3-speed, and it's contrary to what people might believe you do as Ela, but if you start anchoring with her shotgun, you're going to get a lot more value than you would roaming with her SMG. Next, we have Frost. Now, Frost is meant to play on site. She's a 2-speed with a deployable shield, a shotgun, and 3 frost mats that are meant to be on or near site, and playing off of that deployable shield is something that's very powerful as her, especially because she has a 1.5 and a gun with absolutely 0 recoil. So playing on site with her is very good, especially right now. She's one of the top best solo queue operators that you could play, contrary to what you might think, because her gadget is kind of ass. Everything else about her is very, very good with the versatility that she brings, and that's why she's going in the A tier. Next is Kapkan. Kapkan is very good for placing your traps outside of the site and across the map, and once the Kapkan traps get the enemy to low HP, you can clean them up on site with your gun or your nitro cell for that matter to be able to get free kills. He's also a 3 armor, which makes him naturally just a good anchor because you don't have to roam and you don't have to be slow, so that is why he's a good anchor. Now my next pick is going to be Jaeger. Now Jaeger, a lot of people think that he's a roamer, right? Because his gun is very good and he's not a 3 armor, and you can put all of his gadgets down in the prep phase and do whatever you want after that. But as Jaeger, I honestly think he's better suited lurking near sight, or maybe even in sight for that matter, than he would be not. Now the reason I'm saying this is because you bring ADSs for a deployable shield, and if your teammate's not playing the deployable shield, you can easily play the deployable shield yourself with your ADSs and gain a lot of value out of him. They also made it to where his gun got nerfed multiple times in terms of the amount of damage that it does and the magazine size once a long time ago, so his gun isn't best suited for the roam, and you can actually get a lot of value out of it on site behind the deployable shield than you would be on a roam, and that's why I think he's actually very good at anchoring. If you start anchoring with Jaeger and using his utility to anchor, I think you'll see a lot of value out of him than you would trying to roam. If you want to roam, you bring a 3-speed that's a lot better at roaming people that are in the C tier or the B tier, and you'll get a lot of value out of them as opposed to somebody like Jaeger. Next, we have Valkyrie. Valkyrie is an A tier anchorer. You put her cameras down, you play in sight, you get vertical nitros, same thing with Pulse. Her SMG also doesn't have any scopes on it, which means she needs to take close range gunfights, and the way you take close range gunfights is by anchoring, so Valkyrie is definitely a very good anchor. Now you can roam with her, you can play near sight by lurking with her, that's obviously an option as well, but because of how versatile her ability is, you can kind of do whatever you want with her, including anchoring, which is why I think she's an A tier anchor. Pulse, playing on site with him is very good as you get vertical nitros. Playing below site's also very good, but that's a lot more risky because they can roam clear you, and you can really only get 1 kill, then you have to rotate back to site, which they can also still kill you there. So playing on site and giving infinite information to your teammates while also being able to get vertical nitros is very good with him, especially because he now has the 1.5 on his UMP. Now, this is probably my hottest take, but Bandit is a great anchorer. The reason that he's a great anchorer is because he's probably the best wall denial in the entire game right now, being that you can't reliably play Mute or Cade to keep the wall closed now that they have EMP grenades on the field. When they have EMP grenades, the only way you can reliably keep the wall closed is by Bandit tricking, and because you're Bandit tricking, you're in the site, right? So if you're in the site Bandit tricking, you can get a lot of value anchoring as him, and that is why I think he's an A tier anchorer. He may be a 3-speed, but he has a great gun and nitro cell and can keep walls close the most reliably, and that is why I think he is an A tier anchorer. Now Legion, I put in the A tier for the same reason that I put Wamai in the A tier, and that is because they have a rechargeable ability. This means that over a period of time, their abilities recharge and you get more of their ability, meaning that the longer you stay alive, the more of your ability you're going to get, and the people who stay alive the longest in the rounds are anchorers, right? Because they're sitting on site, not taking risky gunfights and not putting themselves in riskier scenarios, meaning that anchoring is the best way you can play these characters. Legion is great because he provides information on where the attackers are that you can swing off of if you're anchoring. Wamai is also great because you can put his gadgets down to help the anchors out and help your deployable shields out if they try to grenade or use any utility to destroy your bulletproof utility. That being said, they're both great anchors for that reason, which is just the rechargeable ability. Lastly, we have Cade. Cade is a great anchor. The reason he's not S tier is because people have EMP grenades now, and all they have to do is find your Cade and destroy it with an EMP grenade. It's very, very easy. Even if they don't find it with a drone, they can probably just guess it's at the top or the bottom of the wall. They're gonna get it anyways. The only way you can reliably keep it closed with Cade is by putting Cade claws in very unconventional spots, or Cade tricking, which is better done by Bandit anyways. That is why he's in the A tier. Still a great anchor, right? He's a 3 armor, nitro cell, pretty good guns. But other than that, he really is outshined by the people that are in the S tier, and I'll show you why here in a second. Finally, what you've all been waiting for is the S tier. Now, the S tier has a lot of hot takes, just like the A tier, and I'll explain why. Thunderbird being at the bottom is a surprise, and probably the biggest surprise on the A tier. The reason that Thunderbird is so good anchoring as opposed to roaming with her is because you can do something called Thunderbird tricking. Now, there's a lot of tricks you can do, but Thunderbird tricking is not really one that's that common. If you put all 3 of her Thunderbirds in sight and you play off of it, it's almost infinite healing, right? Now, Doc being better than her is why he's a little bit higher in the S tier, and you can do what Thunderbird does more reliably with Doc, which is, again, why he's higher, right? But still, if you anchor as Thunderbird, you get pretty much infinite heals. And like I said, there's Thunderbird tricking, where if the healing timer is really low, you can pick up the Thunderbird, you put it back down, and then it's instantly recharged, so you can still get healing extremely quickly with her, especially if you're spacing out all 3 of the Thunderbird stations so they're not on the same recharge timer. And she has a spear and a nitro cell, which are very good for gunfights, but also her spear only has the one-time sight, which makes it very good for close range gunfights, which you get more reliably as an anchor. She is also pretty good at roaming, I will say, so I think even if I make a roamer tier list, she'd still be probably in like the A or S tier, but she's also really good at anchoring, so I definitely think she belongs where she's at. And then we have Rook and Doc. For the exact same reason they're very good at anchoring. Rook, you have a 2x scope, so you can sit in sight and hold very long angles through all of the objective. Also good for spawn peeking. Either way, good as a roamer, good as an anchor. He's also a 3 armor and can self-revive, so if you're in cover in the objective, you can self-revive more reliably, meaning he's a very good anchor. Is he a very good operator? No. Are all of the operators in A tier a better operator than Thunderbird, then Rook, and then Doc? Absolutely. But they're not as good of an anchor. I need to keep reminding y'all that so I don't get comments like, no way this guy put Thunderbird above Cade in a tier list. That's not how the fucking tier list works. I know there's going to be comments about it. Just remember, it's who's better at anchoring, not who's a better operator, please. That being said, for the same reason that Rook is an anchorer, Doc is good as an anchorer as well, especially because he got buffed and he has a bailiff for sight setup. I think he's very good. Next, we have Tachanka. Tachanka is good at entry denial. He's a 3 armor. His utility is meant to be played on sight to slow down the attacker rush. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't really need to go into that. And then we have Maestro and Echo. For the same reasons, the 3 armors, you sit on sight, you use their cameras to deny utility or to stun players and be aggressive on sight, and you get value out of them by anchoring on sight and playing off of their cams. Like I said, they're 3 armors, and they stay still most of the round because they're on your utility, so playing on sight just makes sense with them. Now, Warden in the S tier, again, not a very good operator, especially compared to the people below him, but as an anchorer, he's very, very good. You sit on sight with him, he has a 1.5 and an MPX with a deployable shield. He can stop any smoke plants in the entire game, any smoke rushes, stuff like that. So, you know, very good as an anchor. And then you have Aruni. Aruni was now made a 3 armor, meaning she's even better suited for the anchoring position. You put all of her utility on sight. She has a DMR that's very good at holding angles in the objective. So just naturally with her utility and her playstyle, she is meant to be anchored. Now the same goes for Mute. They also just recently made him a 3 armor. You put down all of his utility on sight anyways, and you have a shotgun SMG-11 combo that are only good for short range gunfights, meaning that you kind of are forced to anchor with him because of his utility and because of the close range weapons that you have. He also has a nitro cell, which is good for plant denial, but you need to be on site for it to work unless you're below, and that is why he needs to be an anchorer, but he's a very good anchorer at that because of the amount of utility and versatility that he brings. Not only that, but you already kind of needed to play her on site to be able to use her utility, right? Because you would put her utility on site, and then once it activated, you would swing off of it and get a freer gunfight because you had the information, and the attacker that walked into it was slowed, meaning they couldn't run away from the gunfight. So already very good at anchoring, but now she's a 3 armor, so she's forced to actually play off of the utility that she provides, meaning that it's kind of a buff to her, and she doesn't have any scopes on her gun, meaning it's more of a close range gun. Being as it also does very little damage, she's best suited for the anchor role. And then we have Mira. Just like Melusi, she's a 3 armor where her utility is meant to be played on site specifically, and you play off of the information that it provides, meaning that she is naturally just going to be a 3 armor due to how the operator is played and how the operator works. Then we have Azami. Azami is a great anchorer for the same reason that Wamai and Legion are, and the fact that she has a rechargeable ability, meaning the longer you stay alive as Azami, the more value you're going to get out of her, and people that naturally stay alive longer are anchors, meaning that she is a great anchor. Also, deployable shields are huge on defense, especially for anchors. She brings not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 of these things that are more versatile than deployable shields because you can throw them anywhere. She's also good if they're playing vertical on site, as you can close up the vertical holes. She can close up breaches. She can close up doorways and windows, making it harder for the attackers to just bombard the site. She can cover up drone holes and is overall a versatility powerhouse that is best played as an anchor on site. And then finally, we have Smoke. I've talked about this in my top 5 anchors video, which I'll link in the top right. You should definitely go check that out if you want more info on what I'm talking about here. But Smoke is the best anchor in the game. He always has been, and unless they change him, he always will be. When you think of an anchor, and you think of the perfect idea of an anchor, the first operator that always comes to your mind, I guarantee, is Smoke. Smoke is the best anchor in the game, because not only does he have the weapons, the utility, the secondary utility, and the playstyle to back him, but all of his utility and playstyle, like I just said, are cohesive with each other, making him very easy to anchor with and very effective. He has a deployable shield, which is good for gunfights, but he also has very shitty guns that are only meant to be used close range. I'm not saying they're bad weapons, but that you just have to play them close range because of the range on the guns. But the deployable shield makes it a lot easier for you to take gunfights with his very limiting guns. And then also, if you want to throw smoke grenades safely and deny the plant, the deployable shield is very good for that. And then also, if you want them to not be able to rush you and bombard you, you have smokes to be able to slow them down. So, like I said, an anchorer that has all of his utility to be able to support himself and his team, and that is why he's like very fluid when you're anchoring with him. He's meant to be an anchor. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's the ideal anchor, and if you want to learn how to play the anchor role effectively, smoke is a great place to start. That being said, that's it for the entire video. I know this is a very unconventional tier list with what operator I put where, but keep in mind, again, for the 4th time, it is not which operator is better than the other, it is who is better at sitting on site and anchoring, contrary to what you might think. That being said, that's pretty much it for the tier list. If you like the video, like it down below. I make educational siege content every day, so if you want to sub to the channel, do that. My name's Alka, and I will see you in the next one. Later.